number 4.
Bashar al-Assad sentenced to death in Syrian court.
Yes, so Syria's former president Bashar al-Assad, exactly, along with his brother Maher al-Assad, have been sentenced to death in absentia after being convicted of war crimes during the country's civil war. Now, the Fourth Criminal Court of Damascus ruled that the former president was guilty of premeditated murder, torture, and crimes against humanity. His brother was charged for the same. They both now reside in Russia after fleeing Damascus back in 2024 after their government was toppled.
So their cousin, on the other hand, Altaf Najib, was present and tried in court. He was the former head of security in the country's Daria province, where he launched a deadly crackdown on protesters in 2011, and that led to the uprising and ultimately a civil war as well. The image was quite striking yesterday when he stood in a cage wearing a prisoner's uniform as the judge found him guilty of multiple crimes, including the quote-unquote intentional killing of children under 15 and torture leading to death, just to name a few.
Now, this is considered a landmark case for the country as it really puts a test on Syria's new transnational justice system. It's also a chance for the new government to hold members of the al-Assad regime to account. So to help us unpack the situation, we have on the line with us Dr. James Dorsey, Adjunct Senior Fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. James, thank you for speaking with us. So maybe you can start off by talking about how politically significant this sentence is.
It's very important. I think the government of President Ahmed al-Shara has been under pressure to hold leaders and members of the former regime of Bashar al-Assad accountable for what happened during the 11-year civil war. And that's what they're trying to do. Now, this is a government that's just about 18 months in office, with a lot of issues to confront domestically, politically, economically, and therefore putting in place an independent judicial system that is capable of handling these kind of cases is no mean task. They have put in place an independent judiciary, and they have, to the degree possible, tried to ensure that this is a fair and open trial. So in that sense, I think they've succeeded. The message is essentially that this is a break with the past, and that there is going to be accountability for massive crimes that have been committed by the former regime. I think it's also, at the same time, it's a balancing act. Syria is a mosaic, an ethnic, religious mosaic. The regime of Bashar al-Assad was a regime that was first and foremost an Alawite regime, with other words, members of a minority Shia Muslim sect, and the government will have to ensure that the Alawite community does not see this as a persecution of the community as such.
And would you say this represents meaningful political justice?
I think the perception of this, and you see this in the reaction to the verdict and the way that the judges were celebrated, the public prosecutor was celebrated, for the victims of Bashar al-Assad and his family and his regime, this is a moment of justice. Now, fact of the matter is, it was only Bashar al-Assad's cousin, Altaf Najib, even though he was a very important figure, who was present in court. Bashar al-Assad himself, his brother Maher al-Assad, are in Russia, where they've been granted political asylum. And there's no way that Russia is going to extradite the two men. And I think that's something that many Syrians realize. So in that sense, of course, the verdict is, and the verdict of the others, is going to be seen as symbolic. But nevertheless, that's an important symbolism.
And if they are both still in Russia, what does that mean for enforcement?
For all practical purposes, there won't be an enforcement. First of all, it's going to be interesting to see whether Bashar al-Assad and Maher al-Assad avail themselves of an opportunity to appeal the verdict. The same goes for Altaf Najib. But whatever happens, presumably the Syrian authorities will ask for his extradition. That may very well have come up in talks between Russia and Syria earlier this week. They're presumably going to ask Interpol to issue a red notice. But then again, Interpol can issue as many red notices as it wants. It is dependent on countries where relevant. So Russia's not going to arrest Bashar al-Assad and extradite him. Bashar al-Assad presumably is going to be careful in terms of traveling outside of Russia, and certainly where he's going to travel. There are any number of countries that presumably would be willing to arrest him if he lands on their soil or travels through their airspace.
James, thank you so much for joining us today. That was Dr. James Dorsey, Adjunct Senior Fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. As always, if you have thoughts on this story or the previous story we've talked about, you can call us. The number is 7733-2900. You can also send us a voice note or WhatsApp at 018-789-8899. After this, story number 3 on Top 5 at 5, BFM 89.9.
Stay tuned.